Thank you for attending the WiSys Managing Bins is Essential webinar. Today we're going to have Michael Hollinger, who is the Vice President here at WiSys. Thank you for joining us.
What I thought I'd do is start off with the bin location master data, just to kind of give you an overview of how bins are identified in Business One, and also some of the functionality and features of bins in Business One, because everything we do when it comes to bins and batches and serial numbers, we do within Business One. So we don't have any side tables or anything like that to sync up. We go right to the bins within Business One. So I'm going to talk about bin management, and then I was going to kind of just take you through a little bit of our out-of-the-box Agility Essentials product to show you how we can do some simple PO receiving, be able to look at our bins on the floor, and then doing some put away, a simple transfer, and then show you how we can do like a directed picking process, and then just end up with a little bit of cycle counting. So I'm just going to kind of give you a quick little tour here. So looking at the bin location master data, in Business One, they allow you to define these terms. In the end, you're going to have a bin location code that looks kind of like that, and that's the ultimate bin in the system. And if you already have bins that are out there, maybe barcoded, and you're bringing bins on in the system, one of the things you can do is you could use this barcode field. So let's say you already have something out there that looks like it maybe A1, S2, L3, and that's how it looks out there on the floor. You could update everything accordingly, and then we could scan and look up the bin code based on that barcode. So a couple of things in here that I just want to go through. So you can set up receiving bin location by setting the bin up as a receiving bin location. That allows us to determine what bins are going to be set up for incoming. So for goods receipt PO, we can determine what bins will be used as a default bin. So if I go over to the handheld here and go to my options, I can do lookup from a receiving bin and only show the bins that are going to be defined as a receiving bin location. And that'll be my default bin for receiving at the receiving dock. You can exclude bins from auto allocation on issue. So when I get into directed picking and we have, you should have a pick list, it'll automatically allocate bins to go out and pick. You could set up certain bins to not be allocated. So those, you don't want those to ever be allocated on like a pick list. That's when you would check that checkbox. And then you got minimum quantity and maximum quantity, and this is convenient for replenishment. So you can set up, say, once it goes below a certain minimum quantity, you can do a replenishment process to transfer from overstock into like a picking bin. And then there's really nice restrictions that Business One offers. So item restrictions, we can restrict to a specific item. So only one specific item can go in here, or a single item. So once one item goes in there, then no other item can go in there, only at any given time. And then also same thing can happen by an item group. And then unit measure restrictions, so different unit measures, specific or single. We can also restrict batches, so you can say there's only a single batch can go into this bin at any given time. And then transaction restrictions, we can lock down bins within Business One, so lock down to restricting inbound or outbound, or all except inventory transfer and counting transactions. In my demonstration, I'm going to look at this bin here. I've actually, I'm limiting this specific bin to a specific item group for servers. So when we get to doing a put away, I'll show you how that can be beneficial too. So if you can imagine, today we're working with computers in this demonstration, so it may not be as meaningful necessary, but you can think of maybe like a freezer section where there's certain sections where certain items have to go in a certain kind of freezer. So you can make a freezer a bin, and then lock down where items have to go or cannot go. All right. So let's take a look at a purchase order here. We got purchase order 1329. And let's go back to the handheld. So everything I'm showing today is part of our Agility Essentials out-of-the-box product. And Don had mentioned that we also have, we're purpose-built product built on a tool set. So everything you see is also 100% customizable. So we're going to look at a goods receipt PO today to start off with. And I can type. I can also do a lookup where this blue field is in any of our forms. I can do a lookup, or I can scan on that field as well. So we'll look at 1329 as our PO, and I'm going to scan my item. And you'll see that the bin is defined and defaulted to 05-doc. and that was in the options screen I showed you, where you can define the bin you want to default into. If I don't set that, then it'll actually ask me what bin do I want to receive this purchase order into. So this is convenient for when you got a truck coming at the dock, you want to get everything off the truck and into your warehouse. And 05-stock can be kind of considered like a virtual bin. It just says everything's at the dock, and we're going to put away at a later time. So type in 100 and hit enter. And so now we've just received that PO, that line into business one, and I printed a label to the screen just so you can see what it would look like. And this label would obviously print to an actual label printer on the floor. That's defined here. In all of our screens, you just go and define, so if you're receiving, I just find to print to screen. I can choose any printer that's defined right here and on my computer. That label, PO receiving, though, was defined. Just take a step over real quick. If we look at our options and look at our documents, document management. So purchase order, PO receiving is the PO receiving label. This was done in our label designer. This is defined as public. So it will, every goods receipt PO transaction will automatically print this label. I can exclude it from certain items or item groups, or I can make this label private and assign to certain items or item groups. So if you got certain item groups that are smaller and you have a small label, and other item groups that might be bigger, you need a bigger label, that's no problem. We have customers that may even have 20 or 30 labels in here, just depending on what they want to print. All right, so let's look at that one more time. So we'll do one more item here. And you'll notice the other thing is I'm scanning the UPC code, the barcode inside of Business One, and translating that to the actual item. So that's another form of validation. So I'm going to go ahead and just receive another 100 of this item, and we'll get our label. Okay. So now that we've got inventory sitting in our dock, if we're ever curious, what do we have in our system, we can pull up our item view and scan our item. And with the up and down arrow keys, there's up and down arrow keys on the actual handheld. I can just flip through the warehouses. So I can see how much is in stock, committed, ordered, and available in every warehouse. And when I get to a warehouse that's binned, I can also click the bin button. I can see now I've got 100 sitting at 05-stock, and I can see where all my inventory currently sitting. Now this is pulling data right out of Business One. So these are actual, what's in the actual bins inside of Business One there. So let's do a put away process. And let's scan our first item that we received. Okay, so there's our JB Office Print 1420. It's also going to give us a heads up as to what the default bin is. You can put it anywhere at this point, but it just tells you what that default bin is. If you wanted to use our tool sets and lock that down, you could certainly create a rule in there that says that the bin that I scan has to be the default bin. So if that's how you use default bins, if that's a rule, then you can use it that way. So I'll just scan the bin, and I'm going to type in 100 and do my transfer. All right, now I'll just do it with the other item too real quick. And we'll put it into its bin. And there we go. So now if we go back over to our item view and scan that same item and go look at our bin, we can now see it's all been moved into that 353 bin, and the 05-stock bin is empty, so it's not showing up. Okay. So the other thing we can do is just a simple inventory transfer. So if on the fly you want to do an inventory transfer, and again, this is really important when we get into bins. Like all this flow of bins, if you aren't using a WMS, then you're handwriting these things down, and you make sure you get those bins right, typed in the system. If you do the wrong bin, you're going to get them all off, and then you don't know what's in your bins. So it's really important you're scanning this information as you go. So I would scan my item, and I was going to do. So it's kind of like an ad hoc transfer, and I'll scan the bin that I had it in, and I'll move it over to this bin, and we'll just move 10. Okay, so again, if we go look at our item view, scan our item, and look in here, we can now see that we just moved 10 into this other bin 331. So it's all real time happening inside of Business One, so you can see how convenient that is. Okay, so let's move into a directed picking process. bins are really important when it comes to direction. So we need to know what bin sequence to move you into through the warehouse. So I have the sales order 1273. I'm gonna look at the pick list for this one. This pick list, when we created the pick list, it automatically allocated a bunch of bins. Right here, you'll see the bins have been allocated to this pick list. So you'll see that we have A01, 001, 2, 3, and 4. But if you look at the bin sequence, it's actually this second one first, and then the last one, and then the first one, and then the third one. So it's going to be dependent on how we go through the warehouse based on the bins. All right. So I'm going to, on the handheld, I'm going to go to my directed sales order picking process, and I'm just going to type in 55, which is my pick list number. And you see it's taking me to the A1S2L1, so the first bin and the sequence. All right, so it wants me to pick the A002 item, so I'll pick that one. So it's validating that I'm getting the right item. And I want to scan the correct bin to pick from, and I'm going to put in 3. Okay, as soon as we do that, it's now been picked. So that first item now, if we go back and look at this pick list, we can see we've just picked 3 of that item. Okay, so we're just going to keep picking these items as we go along here. All right, so now it's going to take me to go to 153. Okay, so I'm going to scan my item again to validate it, scan the bin, and pick 2. And we'll just keep going. So we'll scan the item, validate the bin, 2 of those, and lastly, validate the bin, and then pick 1. So we'll keep going until it tells us that this pick list is fully picked. Okay, and then once it's fully picked, we just simply click the delivery button, and we just now created that delivery note out of that pick list. So if we go in here and refresh it, we can see now it's been closed. And if we go look at the pick list, we can see everything's been picked successfully from the appropriate bins that were allocated. All right. So last thing I wanted to show real quick is cycle counting. So I'm going to go into our inventory counting here, and we've got a document 4. So I just created a cycle count document. And so now we'll go back to the handheld. One of the things we offer is inventory count by bin. So the nice thing about that is once I put my document in, I can scan a particular bin, and then I can just start counting all the items that I see in this bin. So if you have multiple items in that bin, you start with the bin and just start counting the items in that bin. So in this case, I would put in my A0002, and I counted 3 of those, okay? And if I do that again, let's say I find a little bit more in the back of the bin somewhere, I counted 3, I found 2 more, okay? So if I count that, it'll just keep appending to the count. Okay, so now I've counted a total of 5. All right, so if I go look at this cycle count document, and in here 0, so obviously it was way off. I counted 5 as 850. So we have a variance there. All right, so if we just go in here and let's do that one more time, and let's count another 845. All right, so now we got the 850. So at this point, once you count everything, we just go through and copy to an inventory posting and post the cycle counts back into Business One. All right, well, that's it. That's all I really wanted to show, just to kind of take you a quick run through demo of some of the out-of-the-box product.
Thank you, Michael. Have a great day.